Good morning. This is the Licensing Subcommittee hearing on the Tuesday, the 24th of July, 2018 at 10 o'clock. Start with my chairman's announcements. Welcome to everybody that is here and people watching on YouTube live. There's no audience, so it's fine. Everything will be recorded. First of all, mobile phones, guys. Anybody's got a mobile phone, please switch it off, or if it's extremely urgent, put it on silent. Before moving on to the agenda, let me introduce myself. I'm Councillor Roy Chamdal. I'm the chairman of this meeting. Other councillors here who will be making the decisions are Councillor Janet Gardner, and we have Councillor Teji Barnes. In addition to that, I also have my legal advisor, Mrs. Soni, to ensure that the decisions that we make are just and correct. And in addition to that, we've also got Anisha Teji from Democratic Services. She'll be taking the minutes of today's meeting. We have other officers here, and I would ask them to introduce themselves, please. Stephen.
Stephen Dormer, Licensing Officer, Hillingdon Borough Council.
So we've got PC, Emily.
PC Emily Mitchell, Licensing Officer for Hillingdon.
Stephanie Waterford, Licensing Service Manager, representing the Licensing Authority as responsible authorities.
And we have the applicant and his representative. If you'd like to introduce yourselves individually, please.
Mr. Panchal from Personal License Courses, representing the applicant.
It's William Singh Chopra, applicant.
Thank you very much. Welcome all. Right, here we go. Right, it's a public meeting, not a meeting in public. We've got no members of the audience. Fire alarm. We haven't got no fire alarm planned. If it does go off, it's a real thing. Exit from with the entrance that you came in, or on my right, and me outside at the Slug and Lettuce. Right, just moving to the agenda now. Apologies for any absence.
No apologies.
Any declarations of interest or matters come for this meeting, members? No interest. Okay. Right, everything is in part one, so we don't have to worry about clearing the room. Any matters that have been notified in advance are urgent?
None.
Okay. We also have an addendum sheet. Has everybody got the addendum sheet? Okay, great. We move on to introduction by the services. Mr. Dormer, the floor is yours.
Good morning. You've all had the report bundle and are familiar with the salient points of the application. May I take this opportunity to provide a verbal summary of the application and assist the subcommittee to determine the outcome of this particular application. The licence for this premises was previously reviewed and revoked by the Licensing Subcommittee on the 20th of February 2018. A further application was submitted for the same site and refused on the 23rd of April 2018. The licence, which was revoked on the 20th of February, is currently being appealed to the Magistrates' Court. The applicant was invited to the Council to meet with the Licensing Authority. This was based on the application we have been put before us today. This was to ascertain if there was a clear separation from the previous regime. The Licensing Authority have also requested documentation to prove that there has been a genuine purchase of this business. The only proof provided is a lease agreement on the grant of a premises based on the granting of a premises licence, which is included in the addendum pack. The Metropolitan Police and Stephanie Waterford, representing the Licensing Authority for Hillingdon Council, have put in a representation to the application. Both representations are included in the published bundle. Both representations echo similar concerns over the acquisition of this business by the applicant that's before us today. There is case law that is included in the legal comments on page 9 of the published bundle, which basically highlights circumventing current legislation can be seen as a loss in public confidence in the legislation which we are here to oversee. This is something that the subcommittee may wish to take into account in determining the outcome of this particular application.
Thank you, Mr. Dormer. A couple of questions. I'll start off. clarifications. You mentioned that you've asked to meet the applicant and some documentation. Can you tell me when you have the date you asked for these?
This is actually something that Stephanie Waterford requested, not myself, Chairman.
So the question was, do you know the date that was asked for?
Not clear on the exact date at this stage.
So in terms of coming before the subcommittee, it's purely because you haven't had relevant information. Is that am I correct in saying this is your representation?
The evidence submitted to the licensing authority was not satisfactory or robust enough for the licensing authority to be content with this application not coming before a subcommittee.
Do you know if any other communications had with the applicant or his representative in terms of asking for this information?
I believe there has been communication by Hillingdon Council, by the licensing authority to meet with the proposed applicant and Mr. Panchel representing him as well. And to my knowledge, there's not been a meeting that's been conducted here or at the site to ascertain what the to satisfy the licensing authority or the police that this is something that the two responsible authorities have been keen on doing, and as far as I'm aware, this hasn't taken place.
Okay, thank you. Members, any questions? Okay, thank you. Okay, so we can move on to the applicant. I imagine you're going to speak first, Mr. Panchel?
Just a clarification on the meeting earlier. That could I?
If you could give your representation first, and if there's any clarification myself or all the members need, then we can move on to that, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, this is an applicant by my client, who is a businessman dealing in properties as well as dealing in tenanted properties and import wholesale business. During this application, my client was away for a little while on his business trip, and hence, when the meeting was trying to be arranged, he wasn't in the country on 28th. He was to return back on 28th of the consultation period was going to be over on the 29th, and he was in to come back to the country on 28th. The present business venue is going to be where my client is presently, who doing his business, is going to be under a development. So this was the opportunity for him to grab this business where he could run the business and off license, and also run his own other businesses from the venue which he is deciding to purchase at the moment on lease. He has also been offered by the present freeholder.
So, Mr. Pratt, if you could stick to the points of the licence. His other business activity is not for this licensing committee. It's purely on this licence application, please.
Yeah. Thanks, Chairman. I will come back onto the main application, but I was trying to tell you exactly what the background is and how he wishes to take the business up. My client was offered the freehold of this, the leasehold of this business. He wanted to run the off license, and that is what trade he wants to go into. So he obtained his personal license. He set for the course for his personal license on 23rd May this year at our place. Obtained his personal license last night. We were given, the application was put to the Ealing Borough due to the backlog at Ealing Borough. We just received his personal license documentation last night from the London Borough of Ealing. So hence we could not produce it earlier, but we have got the personal license now approved, and copies are here for the personal license. My client understands that what has happened in the past, and understands the business in the past, and I will now ask my client to tell you how robustly he is going to be running the business and how the business is going to be run. He has registered for the business He has changed the branding of the business, which doesn't have a good name at the moment, and changed the name to CK Food and Wine Limited. The CK Food and Wine Limited has also been registered for VAT. The VAT documents have just come in this morning. And he is going to be, we have put down some conditions on the amendment that the other document that you've seen. He is already in process with the solicitors. He has appointed a solicitor, Shergill & Co., who are going to be dealing with how the takeover of the business. We have proposed the conditions in the attachment 2 of the amendment on how the 4 licensing objectives are going to be promoted at the premises. There will be a training manual, there will be all posters put up, and Mr. Vadim Singh Chopra would be a better person to explain to you how he's going to be running his business and how he's going to be employing the staff in that. Sorry.
Thank you for that, and sorry for early around. I'm not in a country to attend my meeting. Sorry for that. I do my business in the past couple of in summertime, so I'm sure I'm going to be run this business as well very well. And I understand the previous people in that premises, they done wrong things, so I'm not a person like that to do all those kind of things, because in my record, if you're going to see, I'm doing another business as well since long time. So I hope I'm going to be do this business as well, because I'm new in this business, but I'm sure I'm going to be run this business very well.
How many staff are you going to be employing at the premises?
At that time, I decide if I grant this license, so I can myself and another 3 or 4 employee I can put in this premises to run this business.
Do you understand what is the minimum wage of the staff?
Yes, yeah. It's 7.83 per hour at the time.
Where will your purchases be for the shop?
I can purchase all this cash and carries, which is with register with HMRC, VAT register and everything.
Chairman, as you've seen now, it will be essential for us to also hear from the client. Does he understand the 4 licensing objectives? Can you tell us the 4 licensing objectives, please?
Yeah, the prevention of crime and disorder, promotion of public safety, provision of public nuisance, protection of children from the homes.
Thank you very much, Chairman. We've seen how... Is that it? Finished? Yes, finished. Thank you.
Okay. 3 questions from myself. You say you're new to the business. Have you? So you haven't operated any retail outlets before then?
Sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah. Switch that off, please. Thank you. One person switches on, one person switches off, please. So is this your first role in a retail business?
Yes, yeah.
Now, you said you've obviously wasn't available. I mean, the application sort of hangs on the responsible authorities haven't had enough information in terms of to process this application, should we say, because the business that you're taking over is what you would describe as a tainted business. You said you're aware of their history. Would you tell us what the history is of this premises previously?
When I meet the landlord, Mr. Bhatia, and he was give me the offer for this premises, and when we go to in the premises to have a look at, on that time he told me everything about the shop and about the previous people sitting there, what they done, and their licenses revoked. So everything, Mr. Bhatia, the landlord, he told me about the situation. So he gave me the good opportunity for that good premium and everything. Then I decided to go ahead and apply for license. If I get the premises license, then I can go ahead with this premises.
Are you related to the previous, well, people who actually own it at the moment? Are you any relations in whatsoever?
No, not at all.
Okay, some questions from... You can ask. Any questions? Members?
What's happened or is going to happen to the existing staff that are in the premises at the moment?
I can decide. I didn't decide it yet. Once I got the permit license granted, then I can see who's working there, if they are related to the previous people over there. So I'm going to not keep those people in the premises.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask you, did you say you were going to employ 3 to 4 members of staff to run the shop for you? Was it 3 to 4? Is that what you said?
Yes, yeah. Myself is working there as well, and I can try 3 or 4 people to get, because it's a long shift from morning till late. So 2 of them at one shift and 2 staff in other shift, so they have to work.
Yes, that's what I was concerned about, because they're very long shifts, and obviously your shop is open in over 100 hours a week. And how are you going to balance that with the other businesses you seem to be running?
I got already a staff in other business as well. So if I need more staff in my other business, so I can increase the staff in that business as well. Thank you.
Councillors, I have some questions specifically for Mr. Panchal. Mr. Panchal, you also act for Mr. Sachdeva, the current premises license holder. Am I correct?
Sorry?
You act for Mr. Sachdeva as well?
I don't act for Mr. Satdeva. I just consult when he needs any advice.
Yes.
But we don't act.
He's employed an advocate, Duncan Craig,
Yeah.
who says that he receives his instructions from you.
Yeah, we
And you will be aware that there's currently, Mr. Sachdeva is actually fighting to keep his license, and we're due in the Magistrates' Court on Tuesday.
Yep.
Mr. Sachdeva has filed skeletal arguments
Yep.
in order to proceed with this appeal. So the main question that I think the subcommittee does need to know is if the license is granted today and Mr. Sachdeva intends to proceed with his licensing appeal, what exactly is going on in that business?
We're going to, if this license is granted today, we will be advising Mr. Satdeva to withdraw the appeal, because Mr. Varyam Singh, who is dealing with the landlord directly, will be the new owner of the shop.
Panchal, you are aware that everything you say here can also become argument in that appeal.
Yes, I'm...
You are aware that this comment lends itself to a point that an appeal was lodged simply to frustrate the decision of the subcommittee, if that is in fact the approach of Mr. Sachdeva.
Sorry, I'm not with you.
The whole purpose of the appeal was not to fight for a license, but to prolong matters so that the business could be sold or transferred to another owner, thereby frustrating the decision of the subcommittee originally to stop that business from trading and placing the public at risk.
I can't comment much on that.
Mr. Panchal, you are the advisor.
Yeah. Sorry, my advice is at the moment the business is on sale at the moment. And if Mr. Varyam Singh purchases the business and gets his license and goes ahead, my advice to Mr. Sachdeva would be to withdraw the appeal, and because he will have no place to trade.
Explain this to me. Has your client who's sitting here today actually spoken with Mr. Sachdeva? He refers to Mr. Bhatia. So if there's no arrangement between the new owner and the existing owner, how can you be so certain that we will not land up with a position where actually both parties can continue to trade and frustrate the decision of the subcommittee in all instances?
Yes, I can explain to you that, because Mr. Bhatia is the freeholder of the property, Mr. Varyam Singh is dealing with Mr. Bhatia, the freeholder. He is not dealing with Mr. Sachdeva in that.
In that case, have you got proof that Mr. Bhatia intends to terminate Mr. Sachdeva's lease so that your client today can take up a lease?
Yes, I can assure you that Mr. Bhatia will terminate Mr. Sachdeva's lease anyway. If the license is granted and Mr. Sachdeva goes ahead, Mr. Varyam Singh goes ahead.
So, I think Ms. Soni's issues through the questions I have still outstanding. Is the business up for sale at the moment?
Yes, the business is up for sale, Chairman.
So this is for Mr. Chopra. In the conditions that you've stated that you will be holding, one is to bar the two, Mr. Sachdev and Mr. Kapoor, from the premises. Could you tell us demonstrate how you'd action that?
Okay. Mr. Amandeep Sachdeva and Mr. Bhajan Singh Kapoor, they're not related to me, and I know him since when I make a deal with the landlord and when I went first time in premises. After that, I know him. Before that, I don't know him.
Take your time, it's very important, yeah?
Panchal, that is your client's condition. You do not need to explain it to him unless you are convinced your client does not understand what he has submitted. I suggest your client answer the question. No need for your intervention.
Okay, yeah. The Mr. Sachdeva and Mr. Kapoor, if I got this license and I got the premises, I'm not going to be allowing to in premises after that, which is they're not allowing, so I don't know how I can explain.
Well, the question is quite clear. Could you demonstrate to me on how to promote the licence objectives, including the conditions which you have stated that you will be acting upon, will you be barring these two individuals from your business? And that also includes your staff.
So I explain my staff as well to those people, Mr. Sachdeva and Mr. Kapoor. They are, not longer in this premises, so they're not allowed to come inside or say anything, or they have any activities on the shop. So.
Also, you've presented in the addendum a letter from your solicitor, Shergill and Co. It's not very clear. What is the actual date that this letter was sent to you? This is attachment 1 on the addendum sheet.
I have the original copy as well with me. If you can give me a second, I'll just...
No. From that copy.
I'm just not showing the date, so exactly I couldn't see the date properly.
Original copy में date है?
Yeah, original copy has date. So give me a second.
You speak your microphone off. Sorry. While you're looking for your documentation, so you are definitely going to buy this shop?
Yes, if I got granted license today, then definitely.
So if you don't get a license, if you don't demonstrate that you get a license, you would not be purchasing these premises.
If I don't grant the license, then I'm not going to get this premises because there is sale for the alcohol and tobacco items, cigarettes, and the license is going to be, the sale is going to be, I'm not sure for the groceries, how I'm going to be run the business to that.
Yeah, the question being, obviously, what percentage is sort of alcohol sales to non-alcohol sales? So would it not be a viable business without the alcohol license?
I haven't decided yet to gonna go ahead with that or not.
There also is a street trading license. Have you put an application for a street trading license as well? Because I understand it's in the name of Mr. Sachdev or Mr. Kapoor, one of them.
Chairman, we haven't put the street trading license application yet.
Would you be asking for a street trading license?
Yes, we will be asking once if this license is granted.
Yep, Councillor Barnes.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Chopra, on this letter from Shergill & Co, it looks like the date is the 3rd of July 2015. Is that correct?
3rd of July 2018. I got the original copy. Yeah.
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions? Okay, I'm done at the moment. We can move on to Emily.
Good morning. The main issue from the police is that we haven't seen sufficient evidence to prove that this application is independent of the previous licence holders, and that is why police have made representation against the grant of a new licence here. Having listened to you today, quite honestly, it sounds like you're winging it. You don't know any facts or figures. You're not aware of costs of the shop. You've not proved any or provided any sort of documentation that you are in the process. There's no contracts here that you've provided. There's nothing to show us that you're an independent purchaser of this business. So I'm not satisfied with that. It also sounds like we're asking you about employees and you say, well, you've got other businesses, you might bring the employees in from there. We don't know what your other businesses are and whether these people are responsible and will be able to actually be responsible for the retail of alcohol. I'm not satisfied. I don't think today you've brought to the party any evidence to show that you're independent and that it's a genuine and serious purchase.
I got this.
Sorry, it doesn't work this way, yeah? If you look at the agenda, yeah, it works in a specific way. Mr. Pancha, if you'd like to explain to him how it works. We get to ask some questions from Emily. It was PC Dave Butler. It's not here.
No, Dave Butler's absent from work at the moment, so I'm standing in on his behalf, but yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Dates. I asked originally from Mr. Dormer, he didn't seem to know. Do you have the dates of when you were asked to meet the applicant?
That would have been, Dave would have been attending the meetings. I know there was, if Steph could answer that because she included us into the invites.
Councillors, any clarifications, questions to PC Mitchell?
PC Mitchell, have you seen anything here to demonstrate, in your opinion, that the licence holder is going to uphold the licensing objectives?
It sounds to me like he's been brought in at the last minute to parrot fashion the licensing objectives. He's trying to answer questions on quickly without actually knowing any facts or figures. It seems to me like he has no genuine interest in purchasing this business or running it. He's running other businesses. We don't know who the DPS is going to be. He's not come with a full business plan as far as I'm concerned to this meeting today.
Thank you. Anything else? No. Mrs. Wolford.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, councillors. I've made representation today as the officer duly authorised to represent the licensing authority in such matters. We have been presented with this new application for Mr. Varyam Singh Chopra for the premises known as Ocean Superstore. We've gone over the history of the previous case, so I'm not going to stretch that out any further. We are now invited to consider a second new application for this premises. Mr. Chopra's application is fairly standard in terms of how an off-licence should operate. The operating schedule ticks a lot of boxes in terms of meeting the licensing objectives. And I note further that the proposed conditions put forward in the addendum and would suggest that the applicant's agent has sought to offer reassurance to the responsible authorities that the business will be operated in accordance with the licensing objectives. However, in hearing Mr. Chopra's submissions today, I remain unconvinced that he actually has any awareness of these conditions or can explain them to the satisfactory of the responsible authorities or the committee members. The applicant's agent has also provided a solicitor's letter in the addendum stating that Mr. Chopra's lease will be completed upon successful grant of premises licence here today. Incidentally, we were presented with the same letter for Mrs. Kapoor's application back in April. Unfortunately, we have not been able to meet with Mr. Chopra due to him being unavailable. I note he was due to return on the 28th of June. However, there has been no contact between Mr. Chopra, his agent, or myself with regard to setting up a meeting. So therefore, we've been unable to ascertain that this is a legitimate transfer of business. As Ms Soni has mentioned, the original licence holder, Mr Sachdeva, is appealing the council's decision to revoke his premises licence, and the hearing will take place next week. Mr Sachdeva has chosen to defend his livelihood and clearly wishes to secure the continuance of his licensed business. As the decision is currently under appeal, Mr Sachdeva has been able to continue operating his business and selling alcohol from 153 North Hyde Road. We are now in a position where we are asked to believe on one hand that Mr Sachdeva is challenging the council's decision to revoke his licence through appeal, and on the other hand we are supposed to believe the second new applicant, Mr Chopra, who has told us that he also wants to start this new business. I would suggest that this application is merely an attempt to continue licensable activities from 153 North Hyde Road, no matter who holds the licence. The leaseholder remains unchanged in the name of Mr Bhatia, and it would appear that the controlling mind of the business also remains unchanged. I remain unconvinced that this is a legitimate transfer of business, and I would therefore invite you to refuse this application.
Thank you, Ms Wolford. In terms of the dates, do we have dates of when you were asked to meet and when to ask any documentation? In terms of a bit more meat on the bone in terms of with the applicants or the representative?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, the consultation for this application was sent out on the 4th of June, and I would have made contact with the agents on or around that date. I don't have the exact date, unfortunately, but it would have been sometime on or after the 4th of June, and we would have requested such things as arrangements for lease, VAT registration, accounts set up with cash and carries, etc., in order to help us ascertain that this is a legitimate transfer. I did that and also involved the police and also trading standards in that submission to the agent.
So, just for clarification, did we get anything back from either the applicant or his representative?
The items in the addendum were the only thing that we received.
Do we know when these were sent then to us?
Chairman, I'm afraid I don't have the exact date, but it would have been over a week or two ago.
Okay, councillors, any questions, clarifications? Councillor Barnes?
I just wanted, Stephanie, just to clarify. Did you say that this letter from Shergill was the exact same one for the previous application for Mrs. Taranji?
Yes, that is correct. Obviously the name has changed, but it is the same format letter with the same conditions of lease offered.
We move now on to the discussion stage. I've got some questions to the applicant or his representative. Now, these applications were made for some information. Could you give us some dates when this was received from officers, when you responded? Also, would like to know a bit more about Mr. Chopra's trip, when he went out, when he came back.
Yes, Chairman, I would like to clarify quite a bit of things that Stephanie just said. I was in constant touch with Stephanie regarding the meeting, and I did explain to the responsible authority that Mr. Chopra is not in the country, hence we could not arrange the meeting. So we were in constant touch to say, and in the past, the applications that we normally do to the councils, we immediately get in touch with the responsible authorities if there is a chance to make an arrangement with the applicant and ourselves and the responsible authorities to clarify matters. At that particular stage, Mr. Chopra was not in the country, and he was coming back on the 28th. When we rang Mr. Chopra, his mobile phone was in an overseas state, and I asked him when you were going to be back, and he was going to be back on the 28th. So I did convey that message to Stephanie to say...
28th of what month, sir?
28th of last month.
Yeah, I'm not disputing that, Mr. Panchal. There's been about 3 or 4 weeks since that date, though, and we haven't heard from you or Mr. Chopra since then. Yeah, as soon as Mr. Chopra arrived back, we immediately asked Mr. Chopra to get the documents that was required, and we got the documents that were required from Mr. Chopra. Now, coming back to Stephanie's matter in saying the same letter has come from the same solicitors, may I just tell the committee that we are privileged as a company that we deal with quite a large community in Hillingdon Borough. So you may find applications coming to yourselves or to the borough from us on the same matters. Like, for instance, giving you an example, if this license was not granted, the application is, the shop is up for sale, and we might turn up again with another application for somebody else purchasing this shop, and we would be here sitting in front of you with an applicant, and you'll have the same answer from Stephanie to say, well, Mr. Panchal, we saw you on the other applicant, you are back here in the next applicant. So we tend, similarly with solicitors, normally the communities who are in business there, they tend to use 1 or 2 solicitors like Shergills or Puri or Bradbury's. Those are the solicitors who are constantly used by the communities.
Sorry, Mr. Panchal, I might have missed it in your submission, just in your answer, but I asked for dates when Mr. Chopra left the country and came back. I don't recall actually hearing any dates come. So if you could furnish me with that information, when did he leave and when did he come back?
Yeah, Chairman, as I said, he came back on the 28th, so I can ask Mr. Chopra, when did you leave?
17th of June.
17th of June he left the country and arrived back on 28th of June.
So you've been back since the 20... Have you had any communication then since with the licensing authorities?
I mean, we've had communications with the licensing authority ourselves. As soon as Mr. Chopra arrived, I did ring Stephanie and said he's arrived now back. And then I asked the client to bring in the documents, which we immediately sent it to you.
Because your client is aware, the applicant is aware of the case law surrounding such applications and the need for information to be absolutely clear for licensing authorities. Because we've got representations here from the police who are all suggesting that this will be bringing what the Justice said was bringing the risk of bringing the licence regime into disrepute. Unless you clarify exactly where you're coming from, there's no relationships with the previous owners. And then also, the applicant should be aware that he has to demonstrate to us that he will be promoting the 4 licence objectives effectively. At the moment, we have asked the question, for example, how he would bar 2 individuals named, and as such, he's not aware of how he's going to do that.
He is aware, and we explain in his language. It's just his expression to you at the moment is becoming a bit difficult. But he is aware that the two people, A, first, they are not related, and B, he is going to be barring them, that they are not allowed to come during the licensable activities at the premises.
Councillor Barnes.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm sorry, I just need a little bit more clarification as well. Stephanie, did you say there was a consultation on the 4th of June?
That's correct. The application was submitted, I think, around the 3rd of June. The consultation went out on the 4th, which would obviously predate the day when Mr Chopra said he left the country.
Yes. Because there was obviously a consultation, Mr Punchal, on the 4th of June, and then Mr Chopra left the country on the 17th of June. So there's obviously a couple of weeks there that I would assume you would ask your client to try and produce the information before he goes away for another couple of weeks. Would you not agree?
Yes, we do tend to tell the client to get the information that we require, and hence they go back to the solicitors and ask the solicitors to give the information back. In fact, we've also asked before we came to the hearing that we wanted a draft lease from the solicitors, and Mr. Chopra came back to us last night and said Mr. Sukh, the Share Guild's lawyers, are not available till 12 o'clock today to prepare that. So that was a chance that we missed. We also asked him if he was registered with the VAT, which has come in this morning from the accountant. So the VAT registration has already been made for the premises. So all those documents are coming in as we are in the process. So there is a VAT registration. The company has now been registered at VAT. There is still other documents to be registered if the license is granted, like for instance the lottery machines have to be transferred, the Oyster card machine has to be transferred, but those processes will take place as we go around.
Through you, Chair. Can I just ask again then, do you not advise your clients that there's obviously a very small window of time that these really important documents have to be produced if they're going to apply for something as important as a license?
We tend to do that. We tend to tell the clients that these documents are required, and we don't prepare this. Like for instance, we are not solicitors, so they have to go back to the solicitors or the accountants for the documents that we are asking for, and it is up to those companies to give you them as quickly as possible that we want. So as I said to you, the documents are coming, and the VAT registration has come this morning, which Mr. Chopra has just brought it in. Other documents like draft lease would be in by 12 o'clock, which is no good to me. Thank you.
Mr. Chopra, could you tell us in detail how you're going to purchase the business?
As I told you before, I spoke with the landlord, Mr. Bhatia, and I made the deal with Mr. Bhatia to purchase this business, and there is a 20-year lease for that business and £25,000 for the premium when I pay to Mr. Bhatia, and there is rent review every 5 years and full repairing and
yeah, I can read that thing. I need from you a bit more detail in terms of how you're going to finance the business, in terms of how you're going to purchase it from the previous owners. Landlord is a different issue, yeah?
As far I don't have deal with the previous people over there. I only deal with the landlord, so I have to go through everything with the landlord.
Because obviously your representation here will go, obviously, for us to determine whether we feel you satisfy all the criteria that we need. So you'll be dealing with the landlord only. Am I clear? Correct me if I'm wrong. So you'll be dealing with the landlord only, and you will not be dealing with, in any shape or form, with the current owners in purchasing the business.
Yes, I'm dealing with the landlord only, and I'm not dealing with the people in the shop, Mr. Sajdeva and Mr. Kapoor. I'm not dealing with them.
In terms of your solicitor's letter, have you got that solicitor's letter here? The reason why I want to say it, I can't read the date on the photocopy. Photocopy hasn't seemed to come out too clearly. Could somebody just have a so I can see the date? I'm not sure whether it says 2015 or 2018. Not quite. Councillor Gardner.
This is a question for Mr. Chopra. If Mr. Panchal told you to get the documentation ready so that the licensing authority could see it, and you took ages to get it, and then stuff is still coming in today, how do you expect us as a committee to believe that you'll be able to comply with the licensing objectives?
As soon Mr. Panchal told me to need any documents, so I tried to arrange to get the document to give to Mr. Panchal to represent. So as far like Mr. From Shergill and Co, they are working since like their own way, not on my way to, if I told them to get me a lease document and everything. So they takes time, and they ask me for VAT registration. Then I call my accountant straight away to get the VAT registration done for me for the shop, and they done the paperwork, everything, and they give me the letter and paperwork as soon they got that. So I try my best to get the document as soon as possible to give to Mr. Panchal.
Yes, Councillor Gardner.
What worries me slightly is that, unless I'm completely wrong, which I am sometimes, you're the customer, you're asking the solicitor. It's up to you to make the solicitor get things done. It's the same as the accountant. If you're paying the accountant, you're paying the solicitor, surely you're the one that holds the cards. If you don't just say, can you get this done for me, I don't really mind when it is. Do you understand what I'm saying? You're supposed to be the one that's giving out the orders to people that you're paying.
Yeah, I spoke with solicitor last week, and they said they're going to do the paperwork, the lease, the draft lease they're going to do for me. But it's weekend in that meantime, and Monday is not working. Every Monday is not working, and today we have an appointment. So by the time he's done the paperwork, it's too late, and we came early here. So that's why we didn't get the paperwork from him. And the accountant, which I told him last week, and he put this application for the VAT registration, and we got the document from him this morning, and he sent me by email, and I got it here with me.
You can understand, I can hear the general feeling of, in terms of frustration in Mr. Chopper. You can understand where we came from. We're convening a subcommittee hearing to determine a licence. Yeah, it's very important that we have all the facts before us. And if you weren't able to get the facts before us, I'm sure your agent can inform you that there is a method there where we can adjourn or ask for an adjournment. But you've come here before us with all the facts that you have. Whether it's your accountant or your solicitor or whatever, the point is, we're sitting here and we can make a determination on what you present before us, not what you're not going to present before us. Yeah? Do you understand very clearly? Because I can understand from my members as well. Steph, question in terms of, I heard the name mentioned of Mr. Bhatia a couple of times. Now, is this chap the landlord, or does he sublease it, or I'm not quite sure. Could you some clarification on that?
I'm also not quite sure. I don't know whether he is the freeholder or he's a leaseholder, which is subletting. I'm not entirely sure. At the moment, he is the landlord for Sachdeva and Mr. Kapoor, who are the licence holders for the previous premises. I'm unaware if he is actually the freeholder or whether he's making a sublet arrangement with Mr. Chopra.
Mr. Panchal, could you put some clarification on that, please?
Yes, I can, Chairman. Mr. Bhatia is the freeholder of the property.
Mr. Chopra, you mentioned that you were going to have no contact with Mr. Sachdev and Mr. Kapoor, who own the business currently and who are appealing against this previous subcommittee decision. So how are you going to actually purchase the stock, sir?
The stock in the shop, we're going to take over as soon as I got the lease signed. Then after that, I can go with the cash and carries to buy the...
No.
Yeah, the present shop where we will buy the stock from them. I will make a check to give it to the landlord, Mr. Bhatia, and they will give it to the people, Mr. Saideva and Mr. Kapoor. What's the value of the stock in the shop?
So do you have an estimation of what the value of the stock will be?
Not exactly, but between 20,000 to 30,000 pounds.
Your estimation, just to clarify, you believe there's 20 to 30,000 pounds worth of stock in the shop, yeah?
Yes, sir.
If you go to page 36 of our pack, it shows street activity. Is this something similar you're looking to carry on forward?
Yes, sir.
With the same kind of structures that you have there, in terms of how the product is displayed with, I don't know, what are those, the baskets?
I try my best to improve this, everything which is previous people over there do. I try my best to do more, improve this.
No question, I just looked at it, I thought maybe licensing authorities might have missed that. That looks like bread baskets to me from ABF, which I'm sure they don't allow to use.
That would be enforced under separate legislation, Chairman.
Okay, so I'll just mention that. Any other questions? Ms. Soni.
Mr. Chopra, who's going to be the DPS of this premises?
Myself.
Have you given the police a chance to get your details so that they can check and vet whether you are suitable to hold the position of DPS?
We've got the document, once the personal license is granted, a person can become a DPS. A personal license is only granted if there are no criminal records of that. And the personal license has already been granted with the DPS.
Sorry, can we have some
we'd still do a
clarification
full
on that?
check if someone was applying to be a new DPS of the premises. We'd still check the criminal history of that person, regardless of whether or not they have a personal licence. We'd do a separate check.
So, the obvious question being, have you checked it? Have you had a chance to check it?
Have you gone through E-Ling for this?
Yep.
I haven't, no. It would be E-Ling.
So, Mr. Panchal, do we have some evidence of this?
Chairman, the license has been issued. The personal license has been issued, which we have a document here.
While you're looking for that, sorry, just switch your microphone off, please. Well, you don't look for it. Take your time. Just for a bit to clarify for myself again. So, what the applicant's representative is saying is, he's got a personal license. Now, so in Hillingdon, so even if they have a personal license and they then apply for a DPS, there'll be a same sort of check or different check, but you would still need to go through those checks.
Yeah, whenever we get a new DPS coming into a new premises, whether or not they've been working in the industry for 20 years or not, if they're coming to our borough, personally, I check them all and make sure that they're suitable to run that business.
Thank you. Mr. Pancha.
Yes, Chairman. I can tell you how the DPS works, because we run DPS courses, we run personal license courses.
The council is aware how DPS works. The question is, has Mr. Chopra given the Metropolitan Police Services a chance to look at his background, as Emily said, to check if he's a suitable DPS?
Yes, Chairman. When an application is made for a premises license, a DPS is named on the premises license with his full address and that, and the onus is on the police to look at once he receives the application, a copy of the application goes to the police. So it is the onus of the police to check when the application is granted. They have received the application. It is their onus to look at it, whether the person is liable or not. They can come back during the period of the application and refuse the DPS to say this application is, although it's carrying on, but we do not agree with this DPS. That's the onus on the police. Because once you receive the application, the copy of the application is to go on to you, and the name of the DPS is in that application. If you look at the on your bundle, if you look at page 18 of your bundle, where the application is made, and as soon as you receive the application, the name of the DPS is in that application. So it is the onus of the police at that particular instance to either come back to us as an applicant or come back to the applicant to say we have checked the applicant's details and we do not agree for him to carry on to become the DPS.
You want to come back on that?
Thank you for telling me the process is there. This hasn't been checked out. This man hasn't been checked out. We're in the process of doing the hearing today, and the application hasn't gone through, so it hasn't been checked, and I haven't had the chance or the opportunity to meet with the client to ascertain his suitability at this stage anyway.
Okay, so that would be a no. Councillors, anything else? Councillor Barnes.
I was just getting a little bit confused with all that conversation, but actually now that Emily has said that there hasn't actually been an application, or you haven't seen it, because I wasn't sure whether Ealing Police were supposed to verify it or whether Hillingdon is.
Chairman, I can answer your question. When anybody applies for a personal license, when you obtain a personal license, if it's granted, you can become a DPS. You can apply for a DPS, designated premises supervisor, in a premises license when an application is put up. If the police receive the copy of the application, which they all do, it's their onus to look at it, whether they want to object to the person becoming a DPS or not. The issuing borough, which issues the personal license, whichever borough that issues, whether it's Hillingdon or Ealing, in this case it is Ealing. Ealing have already issued a personal license because the Ealing police would not issue the personal license if there was a problem in the application. So if there was a criminal record of Mr. Variam Singh, the Ealing police would object to the grant of the personal license.
Can I clarify? A personal licence and a DPS are two separate things, so there will be two separate checks. So when anybody's getting a personal licence, that they can go to any borough and get their personal licence, and that borough will ascertain the suitability or not. Any application to this particular borough for a new premises licence with the new applicant's name on it, when that comes through to me, I will do a separate check on that, regardless of whether or not they've got a personal licence, just to make sure for my own personal satisfaction that these people are suitable. I haven't had a chance to meet with this applicant, and I haven't done checks on him as yet. We'll, wait for this process to go through, and then...
Is it not a normal...
Sorry.
Is it...
On page 18, we understand that this is something... he wasn't a personal license holder, so when he actually put this application in, he wasn't a personal license holder.
Yeah.
Just a yes or no on these ones.
Yeah.
So when did he actually get his personal license?
We've just received his personal license last night from the Ealing Borough because there was a backlog. When we applied to the Ealing Borough, they sent it to us last.
I got it. PC Mitchell. In terms of normal process that we have here in Hillingdon, how does it work? Just so it's everybody who applies for a DPS, they contact you or you contact them. How does it work?
For example, if somebody who is a personal licence holder wants to, just for example, become the new DPS for Iceland, I will do a name check on them and make sure they have no criminal history. If there is something that stands out as an abnormality, I will put in a call to them, speak to them, or maybe go and have a meeting with them just to ascertain the suitability.
In terms of this application here that we have before us, in terms of the application form that is sent,
Yes.
would that be sufficient information you have on here to conduct a check?
Pretty much. I need the date of birth as well, but yeah.
I don't seem to see a date of birth on here. Page 18 in your bundle, if you look. Mr. Chopra, it's your application. It's a question to both of you. So page 18, I don't seem to see a date of birth there.
Chairman, in the application, the date of birth is not asked for, so hence you will not see. If you look at page 18 and 19, that is the exact details of the client which is required to whoever becomes a DPS. Those details are provided. The legislation clearly allows the applicant to put down whether he has obtained a personal license or not. And in this case, he can apply a premises license and put down that I've also applied for a personal license at the same time. So he did apply his personal. He sat for the exam on 23rd of May.
Ms. Tony has a question for you on that matter. Sorry, Ms. Waterford.
Just for clarification, this was one of the matters that we would have addressed had we had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Chopra during the consultation period or a couple of weeks after, prior to the agenda being published, in order to ask him these questions, ascertain his suitability, both for my own satisfaction, for the police's satisfaction, and also trading standards who have not made a rep today. But that would have been one of the normal processes that we would have gone through had we had the opportunity to have that meeting.
PC Mitchell.
I've just had a chance to have a look at the log for this, so I've managed to look at exactly what has come into police. We've only had one application for a DPS transfer, and it doesn't have this gentleman's name on it. So we haven't had it through for him, and we've not done a check on him. So from the police's perspective, at this stage, nothing has been done.
Okay, Ms. Sony.
Mr. Panchal, Mr. Chopra, when did you pass the personal license test?
On 23rd of May 2018.
And when did you put in the application to Ealing Council for the personal license?
The onus is on our company. When people come to do their courses, as soon as on 23rd May, Mr. Chopra attends the procedure for the course.
Okay, so you put it in on 23rd May. Then could you please explain why on page 19 it says personal license number to be applied for, when the truth is the application was already in process, and had you told the officers that it was with Ealing Council already, they could have liaised with Ealing Council to get the information in your client's absence.
Can I tell you what the procedures are? Mr. Chopra sits for an exam on 23rd of May. You just heard that. We get the certificate from BII after a week, and we still have to wait for a police clearance, which we apply for DBS, before we put the application to the Ealing Borough. The procedure is known. So if somebody comes up to us to apply for a personal license, he sits for the exam, like example Mr. Chopra, he sat for the exam on 23rd of May. We would wait 1 week from the BII to get the certificate from the university that he has passed his exam. When that certificate arrives, in the meantime, we also apply for the police clearance, which is called the DBS, the disclosure, which is changed to DBS.
And that takes maximum
that takes about 1.5 weeks. So when we get that DBS and the certificate, we then send those bundle with the application for the personal license with the 2 photos verified to the council. So that whole procedure takes about 4 to 5 weeks. So his license was then applied to Ealing Council after all the applications, all the certificates have come through, and then the application stood at Ealing Borough. Now, at times we do get these problems. We are in business for 15 years, and we've come across this. A lot of boroughs do tend to have backlog sitting on their applications.
We understand, Mr. Panchal. The question is, on what date did you send the information to Ealing Council?
Well, I cannot give you the exact date, but it took at least 2 to 3 weeks after the 23rd of May. So it went in June.
That's fine.
Somewhere
You've
around
answered
June.
the question,
Yeah.
so you don't know the date that you sent the application.
Yeah, because I could get the date if I asked my office. We would get the date from the office of what date the application went to the Hillingdon Borough, but it went around somewhere in mid of June. And then we just got the application after we struggled to talk to the Hillingdon Borough that we would like this to be processed early because there's a premises license application. And immediately the Hillingdon Borough emailed us the personal license because we were coming to this hearing today.
Any other questions? No? Right, we move to the closing remarks. Now we go in reverse order. You have a question? Sorry. Okay. Right, we'll start with Stephanie first.
Thank you, Chairman. I've listened a lot to what's been said today, and it does appear that this is a bit of a chicken and egg scenario. We are being asked to consider a full application and put our trust in Mr Chopra to uphold the licensing objectives without any, with shortcomings in the presented information to us. The application is being submitted on the 1st of June. No lease arrangement. The solicitor's letter is dated 3rd of July, over a month after the application is submitted. He hasn't had a personal licence. Mr Chopra is still speaking to his solicitor, running around last week trying to get various bits and pieces together. Why wasn't all this in place prior to making the application? It would have satisfied us, I believe, a lot more, or certainly addressed some of our concerns a lot earlier. Nothing that has been said today changes the representation that I have made, and I'd still like the committee to refuse this application. Thank you.
PC Mitchell.
Thank you. I'm in agreement with Stephanie. The business is fraught with issues. It's currently under an appeal. This gentleman's trying to purchase the business. He's not speaking with the people, but assuming that it's £20,000 to £30,000 worth of stock that he'll be buying off them, even though they're desperate to keep hold of their business and their current licence. Mr Panchal has spent a lot of time explaining processes of what should happen and how things work. However, today's hearing hasn't proved or shown any documentation that satisfies the police that you're independent or anything like that. You went on a 2-week holiday. We're an international world. There are phones abroad. You've got a business here that you're trying to purchase. There would have been ways and means of contacting and getting documentation sorted out within that period. Police don't feel that it's satisfied in this instance at all with the hearing.
Thank you, PC Mitchell. Mr. Dormer.
Thank you, Chairman. I've just one concern from a licensing officer's point of view relating to the addendum item submitted on the condition E from a licensing enforcement point of view. I'm not sure how he would meet that condition, considering that one of those gentlemen, Mr Kapoor, has still got a street trading licence valid to December 2018. I don't believe that condition is achievable.
Thank you, Mr. Dormer. Mr. Chopra, Mr. Panchal.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, we have come to this hearing today, and I have presented to you that Mr. Chopra is an independent person on his own. Mr. Chopra has managed to register his business, CK Food and Wine, for which the application has been put in. The legislation clearly states for anybody to put an application, even if he hasn't got a personal license, both the applications can run concurrently. The Licensing Act 2003 clearly states that. And in this case, both the applications were running concurrently. And it took time for the London Borough of Ealing to issue the license. That is a matter for the borough how quickly they can issue. It does happen to various boroughs. This is not the only Ealing is not the only borough that takes time. Chairman, we have explained to you that Mr. Chopra has made all the efforts. He has explained to you that he is an independent person. Yes, he was away. As I explained to you in my early presentation, he is a wholesaler. So he was away on his business trip during that period. And we were instructed if there was anything. And we did speak to the council about it, that Mr. Chopra is away. And as soon as he comes back, and we got in touch and managed to get all the documents that were required. The process was ongoing as far as the VAT is concerned, as far as the lease is concerned, the whole ongoing process is still there, and it's an independent owned process. There has got nothing to do with the previous owners. He doesn't want to do anything with the previous owners, and he has explained to you that he will be, as he has agreed on the amendment, he will be banning the previous owners. And as the licensing officer has now said to you that Section E could not be enforced because Mr. Sadeva and Mr. Kapoor holds the street trading license. Once this business is sold, Mr. Sadeva and Mr. Amandeep Sadeva and Mr. Kapoor will have nothing to do with the business. So that street license will automatically have to be surrendered by them. My client will be applying for a fresh new street license for it, whether it's approved or not. Once it's approved, he can then trade in as a street license, which he's explained that he's going to be improving the street license trading area when you were discussing with him. So, Chairman, I can assure you this is a genuine sale. Mr. Chopra is going ahead to buy the business, and that is his chance. And if there are any other documents required, can be presented to the committee in future if requirement is to be done. But we are saying that it is a genuine sale of the business. And
sorry, are you asking for an adjournment now because to offer more documents? I didn't quite catch.
No, I'm not asking for an adjournment. I'm just saying that if there was any documents that was to be presented, that this license could be granted to that documents to be presented, which we have done in the past. When we did Lotus, we said in a month's time the lease document should be presented to the council. If you remember, there was a condition in that license. Beetle could explain to you. And if there was a condition in this license to say such documents to be presented within 1 month's time, once this license is granted, we are happy to produce those documents. So we are genuinely, Mr. Variam Chopra is genuinely buying this business. It is a genuine sale. So, Chairman, we feel that this license be granted.
Mr. Chopra?
Anything to say?
Only I can say I got no link with the previous owner over there. Then I can only have speak with the landlord, Mr. Bhatia, and if I grant this license, I can try my best to improve all the work in the premises and everything on the street business, street license. When I take everything, I can improve that. So if I got the license, then I can take the premises. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Now we're going to adjourn to deliberate. So we would ask everybody to go out, take your bags with you as well, please. Your mobile phones, don't leave anything around.
Those are 2 licenses.
We have visitors.